And we are on the air. Today I am joined with Rat Resistance, a wonderful YouTube channel from Norway. Rat Resistance, would you care to introduce yourself a little more to the audience?
On the air.
Oh my god,
I
I forgot to mute my YouTube.
Oh,
Okay,
it's fine.
there you go.
Everyone makes mistakes.
What a great introduction for me. Yeah. So I'm Rat Resistance. The people on YouTube call me Rat. People in my normal social life don't call me that. I am a let's say social democrat or a social liberal. I'm sort of mixing those because they are somewhat closely related, and I seem to switch between the two. My YouTube channel is mostly about free speech and why it's so important and why it's basically the cornerstone of the democratic world.
Yes, and free speech is, I think, a very important value, and definitely it needs to be protected. However, it depends on like what your interpretation of free speech is. Like, so just recently, as most people watching probably know, a conspiracy theorist called Alex Jones was banned from Twitter. So Alex Jones is a guy with a long history of kind of like hateful, insane screeds. He's most famous for his conspiracy that Sandy Hook was a what was it? It was a false flag. He's helped encourage harassment of the parents of Sandy Hook. He, in general, he's called various news anchors and personalities like demons, devils, said like they're in league with Antichrist. Alex Jones just kind of lives in this sort of insane world where everything is a conspiracy, everything is a threat, everything is a plot by the deep state. And recently, Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, had come under lots of criticism from some on the left for not banning Alex Jones sooner. Apparently, he had decided that when the staff at Twitter said, Alex Jones is violating our terms of service, he should be banned, Jack Dorsey overruled them. But recently, when Alex Jones confronted Jack Dorsey's limousine and Laura Loomer demanded that her a verified checkmark be brought back, and Jack Dorsey fled away. Apparently, he decided that it was a bridge too far, and now Alex Jones is off of Twitter, like he's off of iTunes, and I think like 27 other sites. Yeah. So, what is your take on the banning of Alex Jones?
Well, I made a video about it, as many others did. My take is that it's not a good idea. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't get me wrong. I think Alex Jones is a horrible human being. Mm-hmm. I think his opinions about the world is rather outlandish. I don't think he is in contact with reality too much. However, there is also obviously a possibility that what he is doing is, for the most part, performance art, which he has claimed himself in court. So there is reason to believe that.
Yeah,
I don't support his Sandy Hook thing. Like most people that supports his free speech would still say that what he said about Sandy Hook was wrong and that he shouldn't have made those segments. And a lot of people that are on his side are now trying to like circle the wagons and go like, oh, there's no proof that he called it a false flag or whatever. But there are a bunch of videos on YouTube that actually has just clipped together all the times that he says that it's a hoax and whatever. With that being said, I am not defending Alex Jones when I'm defending the right to free speech. Mm-hmm. And I think, and I've always thought that the antidote to fake news and false speech and bad speech is more speech. I think that people should, rather than debate him and ridicule him for the things that he needs to be ridiculed for, that's the best possible way to go against his odious vision of the world. I also think that he what can I say, in this world where the public square is no longer a thing, it's on the internet now. Then it's sort of up to the free marketplace of ideas, and I know that's a quote that people, that's a term that people are overusing in a very big way, but the free marketplace of ideas should work in the way that, yeah, he can spout his odious shit, and then people will, take it or leave it. Now, obviously, he has a big fan base, and a lot of people might actually believe what he's saying. I think most people, from what I encounter, and this is obviously more of a, this isn't a statistic, but from what I gather, most people just take him as, stupid entertainment. I think in that way, I think people like Paul Joseph Watson are way more dangerous than Alex Jones. But that's sort of a different-ish point. But yeah, so I'm not defending Alex Jones, and I will never defend him, but I defend his right to free speech, because if I don't believe that the people I hate the most have the right to free speech, then obviously I don't believe in free speech at all. That's the principle.
Yeah, the big Voltaire quote. I may disagree with what you say, but I will defend to your death the right to say it.
Pretty sure
everyone loves to toss out.
Has been quoted with that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So several things here. I do agree in part that I think there is a dangerous tendency in institutions in the state and big corporations to ban and block and censor ideas which they find objectionable. And as someone who finds themselves more on one of the extreme ends of the political spectrum, I've definitely encountered a lot of this censorship. So my position isn't necessarily that Twitter should be able to go around, suspending people willy-nilly. However, I think in a nuanced understanding of free speech, we have to include that there is some boundaries. Like, I do believe in free speech. I believe in free speech even for some of the worst ideas in the world, such as, Holocaust denial, because I think that it's quite dangerous to let the state decide what interpretation of history is correct. However, there's also a question of whether that sort of speech belongs on the platform. Now, you should be, when you have control of a platform, I think you should be judicious about who you bring on and who you don't. Now, it's one thing to bring on, say someone who has bad or quote unquote problematic ideas, and then, but who isn't necessarily toxic. But it's another thing to bring on someone like Richard Spencer, who, advocates genocide openly against another race of people. I saw this video on YouTube of a bunch of Alex Jones. Not Alex Jones. Richard Spencer had gone to a historically Black college in the United States. And when he was starting to do his speech, because, as in America, even if he is denying genocide, he has the right to speak in the university if it's a publicly funded space. And the crowd was booing him. And then in the comments section, I read all these people who are like, oh, well, I disagree with Richard Spencer, but they're so rude. How could they boo this man? Such violence, such foolishness, more intolerance of the left, and all this sort of centrist, patting yourself on the back. Oh, I'm so much more rational and reasoned than these people. I mean, you kind of think, but Richard Spencer is pretty infamous for writing articles, advocating for the genocide of African Americans, not even the enslavement, the genocide of them. And so you're expecting people to not have any reaction at all to someone who is openly advocating for their death walking on stage. Like, to me, that's like a baffling mentality.
Okay, so I think it was The Amazing Atheist, T.J. Kirk, that mentioned something about Richard Spencer being on stage, and a lot of people were like booing him and whatever. And then if you look into the video, it's like the people that actually came there to support him were like, I don't know, 12 to 20 people, which, in my opinion, the best form of protesting someone like that would be to just make everyone not attend at all, and then he can stand there in front of his minuscule crowd and realize how few people actually support what he is.
Yeah, it was pretty funny watching Alex Jones at that university when there was I think 10 old people in the audience and then a massive crowd outside. But there's people who would have gone anyway, and they may not have agreed with him, but they would have gone in the whole kind of free spirit of ideas thing, and he would have been encouraged. Had there not been that massive black bloc surrounding the university. And actually, because of all these black bloc protests in America, Richard Spencer has decided to stop doing university tours at all. In fact, he's so broke that his credit card can't even afford a coffee, and he has to literally beg his followers to give him money online. Milo Yiannopoulos recently went on an entitled rant about how no one appreciated how he was the cause of Trump's election, and how no one appreciated his sacrifice for fighting for the ideas he believed in, and how it was better from now on that he just ate sushi and drank champagne.
So I think Milo is an interesting person in this whole situation, because after his rather, I wouldn't say endorsing of pedophilia, but his rather mild non-criticism against it.
Yeah, it was a very gross video where he was like, well, for many generations, it's been a tradition in the West to for the sort of man-boy love, and it goes back quite far to the Greek tradition.
Yeah,
and all that sort of thing.
The thing about that whole situation is that a lot of people, I think, a lot of his former fans opened up their eyes and realized that there is actually nothing at the bottom of the barrel that is Milo Yiannopoulos. He is just an empty shell that is just there to provoke in order to provoke.
Yeah.
Richard Spencer and Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and people like that are completely different from Milo Yiannopoulos, because they all have something to say and they all stand for something.
Yeah. Well, in the case of Ben Shapiro and what's his face, Jordan Peterson, to me, in some respects, they're still ridiculous figures. Ben Shapiro makes the whole universal health care is literally slavery argument quite often. Jordan Peterson eats an all beef diet and cries about the movie Pinocchio on stream. And I'm not saying that such people are definitely things that I think here's the thing. I'm an anti-fascist, but you have to be strategic. Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, they're often enablers, but they're not fascists. They're just conservatives. And, I may dislike most of the tenets of conservatism, if not all, but they're not really in the same caliber as someone like Richard Spencer, who openly advocates genocide.
Oh, yeah. And, they basically claim that themselves. I know that Ben Shapiro despises Richard Spencer. He thinks he's a horrible human. There is a video of it out there, so it's easy to look up. But yeah, so now we're looking at the right, and we're talking about how Jordan Peterson should be allowed to speak, because he's conservative. We may disagree with what he is saying, but some parts of it might be interesting, or at least he isn't destroying society with his speech.
Yeah.
And Shapiro, whereas I think, yeah, absolutely, Alex Jones is more of a destructive sort of character. But I don't think that he... How can I say this? I think he has been empowered a lot by the fact that Apple, YouTube, Google, and whatever have tried to ban him. You have seen the surge of his Infowars app. His website has gone way up in viewers.
Well, it's tracked because he's in the news. It attracts a lot of attention.
And so I think it's the Streisand effect, basically. It's and even if you're for banning him, I think it's strategically a stupid idea to do so, because you are going to drive people towards him by doing that. But that's more of a strategic argument. I'm still on a principled level not in favor of banning him, because he hasn't actually incited violence. He has always given himself enough wiggle room, whereas he can say that, I'm talking about shooting him down politically. I'm talking about, the Sandy Hook thing was a hoax and they were crisis actors, but he never actually mentions anyone specifically.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the problem that we have to live with, in my opinion. But it also gives us the opportunity to sort of pinpoint him and say, okay, who of these people do you think were a crisis actor? Okay, why specifically do you think that? And so on and so forth. Now, Alex Jones is a slippery eel, and he would probably have some fucking made up responses to it.
Yeah, bluster something about deep state conspiracy.
The gay frogs! Making the freaking frogs gay!
What was it again? I don't like that they're putting chemicals in the water that turn the freaking frogs gay! Crap!
Have you heard the indie song?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. I'll find it for you. It's they're basically the fun part about this one is that Joe Rogan actually played parts of this one on his show. There were a bunch of people that figured out that they were going to put actual Alex Jones quotes and make it into an indie folk song. Let's see, Alex Jones indie. It's amazing. It's some of the funniest shit, and I of course have memorized the entire song because why wouldn't I? And me and a bunch of my friends actually, we know it and we sing it from time to time.
Oh, lovely.
Oh yeah, I sent it to you on Twitter. But yeah, so why do you think that Alex Jones? Why is the banning of Alex Jones a good thing? And why, if you are for free speech, doesn't that create a sort of cognitive dissonance?
Well, here's the thing. Like, it's not necessarily that I'm for the banning of people's speech by corporate or governmental organizations. Remember, I'm a socialist. Ideally, Twitter would either be owned by its employees or owned by its user base, and they would democratically decide upon rules. However, I think that the rules that I would kind of favor, like, say we're talking about something like a Reddit forum, right? The user base in the Reddit forum gets to decide its own rules, and these can be as lax and as strict as the users in the forum wish. Now, personally, I'm not necessarily extremely strict with rules, but I think the conduct that Alex Jones has, is extremely toxic and dangerous to people's lives, and to even to his fans to an extent. So if I were with a say I was a moderator of a Reddit forum, I would put forward to the other moderators, hey, maybe, or like to the user base of the sub, hey, maybe we should create these new rules to add a bit more structure to what's going on our site. Because if you just kind of have like no rules at all, things tend to collapse a little bit. You do need a bit of structure in your world. And so that's why I think that like it would be better if like if I was running, say, a Reddit forum, I would have Alex Jones banned, because I don't think he's adding anything to the discussion. Another thing with Alex Jones is that he has such a huge fan base. Like, it's massive. Like, it's like over 2 million followers on subscribers on YouTube. And that means that his conspiracy theories can get out and spread quite far before anyone, and then when the fact checks are applied by, say, people or news organizations that may have far less subscribers and influence, they don't necessarily reach the Alex Jones audience. And Alex Jones has a very good formula for preventing people from engaging in factual discourse. And that's that the opposition is actually bought out by the deep state. Opposition to his ideas and the information he's bringing to bear isn't just, say, like misinformed or, okay, that's interesting, it's coming from a different perspective. No, it's actively malevolent, it's actively evil, and you need to just turn it out, listen to me. Kind of like a cult figure.
Okay. But I still don't. Okay. I still, like, I hear what you're saying, but my problem is that, okay, so is the fact that he has a lot of fans, should that be a reason for his rights to be, like, for him to lose his rights?
Well, I don't necessarily think, like, say, being banned on a Reddit forum is a violation of your right to free speech.
No, of course, but the difference is that he like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter together are such a big part of internet today that basically, if you are not on one of those 3 platforms, then you won't be heard. Then you won't have the chance to actually be heard. And it's not about me defending what he's saying, like I've said, but I think he has the right to at least have a voice.
Well, I mean, I do believe that I'm not going to lock Alex Jones up or anything, but like, say I was like with my own YouTube channel, Alex Jones is the sort of person that I would invite on to discuss with me. I'd invite plenty of like right-wing to like pretty right-wing people like ANCAPs and such. But with someone like Alex Jones, who's like actively like a dishonest personality, you're not actually getting anything when you have him on. So I'd be judicious with my use of a platform. Now, when it comes to like huge platforms with Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, that's kind of a problem in and of itself. Like, I'm against like how the internet is kind of turned into like these 3 walled gardens with these huge companies having massive power in what we can see and think. Like, don't get me wrong, there's tons of like activists who've had their stuff banned for criticizing the state of Israel, and I don't think that should be the case. Like, I do believe in a healthy discussion around that topic, and so I'm against banning those types, and I'm against the power of these big monopoly groups. However, I would advise anyone with a platform to be judicious with their platform, and that includes constantly hosting people like Alex Jones. Like, look what happened to the Andy Worski show. Like, over time, as they attracted more and more far-right figures with even more toxic and aggressive and nasty personalities, it's kind of just collapsed into another clusterfuck with constant fighting, constant shouting, and even parts where, in order to maintain audience attention, the host has to light themselves on fire
Yeah. When it comes to like, you know, I'm jumping a little bit off topic here with the Worski thing. I think most people jumped ship with the Worski show when JF left, actually. Which, you know, to me, that's sort of that's a danger signal when half your audience leaves because the alt-righter is leaving your show. Or the identitarian. He might not see himself as alt-right, but he is a very identitarian kind of guy. But I don't know. I think it mostly just Andy Worski he seems like a very a guy with a heart in the right place, but he is not a very good moderator for discussions, which, you know, always ends up with his show. If there are too many opposing voices, it always ends up being a clusterfuck. And actually, the Sargon Stick Spencer debate was actually quite a good example of that. Whereas Worski was horrible at his job, and JF was way too much on the side of
Richard
Spencer in the debate to be an actual moderator. So it just ended up being a complete clusterfuck. And I tried to see some of the other things that he did, and it always ends up, you know, they're way too long, and I'm just not interested in hearing them talking to Baked Alaska or whatever.
I still can't get over that that's a name. Like, it's like baked potato. Like, honestly, is this what we're going with here? Could you not think of anything else for your YouTube name?
Yeah. Well, yeah. He probably made it when YouTube was very young, and he didn't really. I don't know how long the user have been on the website. Yeah, but back to sort of the heart of the issue. I do think that some of Alex Jones's speech can absolutely be seen as dangerous, and I understand very much the people that were happy that he was banned. Like, it's not as if I don't understand why they were happy. I just think that it sets a dangerous precedent that we don't really want to meddle with, and it's the tired old cliche of first they came for Alex Jones, then they came for whatever, and then X amounts of lines later they came for rat resistance, and no one gave a shit because everyone was gone already. And even though I would say that I'm not very controversial, but that's the thing. Like, what gets banned now is the controversial shit, and it's the alt-righters and the far-righters and whatever. And then next they come for the, let's say, Antifa and whatever. Yeah. And then they just go closer and closer into the center until you have a completely sanitized version of YouTube where nothing can really be discussed, because if you ever...
Unless you're just parroting like CNN or something.
Yeah. And also, like, if CNN starts saying some of the shit that Alex Jones have been saying, what do you think is the chance of them being actually put out of the platform?
Very little.
Yeah.
I mean, Fox News basically does quite a lot of what Alex Jones does. Alex Jones just provides, I suppose, a more entertaining show for a less mainstream audience. But Alex Jones is to millennials what Fox News is to the boomers.
Yeah. And, Alex Jones has less of a filter, that's true, and he says off-the-wall shit. But if you really listen to what the Fox News people are saying, they are saying off-the-wall shit as well. They just cloak it behind this, what's the word I'm looking for? This class and pristine, and they have nice suits and whatever.
Yeah, like they put a nice sort of paint over it, a nice sort of sheen to disguise like the nastiness of their message.
Yeah, and if you look behind that, they're still cretins. They're evil.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be for them getting banned either, because whatever.
Yeah, it's
should
like Exactly. Like I'm not necessarily like going around saying that, oh, we should be so happy that big corporations can, with a sweep of their finger, ban people off a platform, or that big corporations have the right to enforce rules over people. What I'm saying is more so, I'm glad that I hope that this measure will lessen Alex Jones's influence. Are
Do you
you
think?
familiar with the people who, with the case in the United States where there was people who screamed fire in a crowded theater?
I'm not sure what specifically you're looking for, but I do know the concept of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Alex Jones is basically screaming fire in a crowded theater in a country with the most guns in the world to his massive fan base every hour, every day. Like he's just constantly spewing this stuff, which, inevitably would have to lead to a armed insurrection. Like if the state, at the quote unquote deep state, is so in control and so evil, and the globalists are so powerful and so disgusting and so decadent, then and inevitably the solution to his fiery, angry rhetoric, where he beats his fists on the table and howls like an orangutan, is violent, rebellion. And to me, honestly, when you have such a massive audience, it's difficult for people to factually correct you in enough time that the misguided information has already not spread out. And when that misguided information spreads out, it can inspire all sorts of really nasty things. Like we like even in like small communities, like misinformation, especially kind of a closeted little bubble of misinformation, is extremely dangerous. Like, look at the incel community. They've already produced like 3 terrorists, and they're probably some 20,000 guys online. And all because they've managed to create this extremely toxic ideology around sex and how the world works. And it's just, none of it is true. But because they have successfully inoculated themselves against the outside world, they are invulnerable from the usual kind of discourse and free speech. Does that mean necessarily that the incels should be banned? No, but it means you should be judicious about how you engage with their ideas. And, like, would Alex Jones be someone you'd want on your YouTube channel?
I'm pretty sure I would get a shit ton of views for that, but
taking out of the popularity, let's say he was a random nobody. Let's say he was like a random internet commentator.
Yeah, if we're only talking about the, who he is, then I probably wouldn't. Now, that's not to say that, if I were approached by the guy, then I would probably answer him and whatever, but I would probably not approach him directly myself, because I don't see, like you said, I don't see in what way it would have been constructive. And that's fine. That's for me to decide on my channel. And I sort of get the point that if you take my channel, that's my sort of platform, and then you can take it into a macro spectrum, and then you get to YouTube as a whole. But I only think that YouTube as a whole is so big that it sort of works as the public square, whereas his channel works more like his soapbox sort of thing. And he can go out on his channel and scream bloody murder or whatever, as long as he doesn't actually do. My principles are that free speech is obviously not completely absolute. There are some limits, whereas my limits to what free speech should be. It's basically inciting violence. Threats, direct threats, but even those are actually a little bit like they have to be credible. So if there's a difference, if I live in your neighborhood and I tell you that, oh, Tuesday at 12 o'clock I'm going to come into your house and rape your wife and kill your dog and burn your house down. There's a difference between that and saying, oh, Tuesday at 12 o'clock, I'm going to sling a meteor into your house from outer space with my godly powers. Both of them are threats, but one of them is so outlandish that, there's no way I could do that. The same thing would be if I were sitting here, and I speak a lot with my hands right now, but if I were sitting here in Norway with like no money on my account, no outreach, I can't get a visa, and then I tell you in Canada that, oh, by the way, look out next Monday because then I'm going to kill you. It would be like, okay, what are the chances of me actually doing that?
Although that one is a bit more in a gray area, but like the first one clear examples.
Yeah,
and it's definitely a preference of mine to talk to people with ideas even that I consider noxious, rather than just banning them or blocking them and marching away. But
the thing with YouTube is that I have this. Okay, so Alex Jones says a bunch of shit that's offensive. If you're offended, that's fine. Then just click him away and don't search for his stuff. And that's sort of my mentality, and that's not to be sort of condescending to the people that might find him offensive and might have an issue with what he's saying. It's mostly the fact that, okay, you can watch things that, like, I watch people that I disagree with. I don't actively watch people that offend me. Now, I have rather thick skin, so it's hard to offend me, but there are ways, and those people aren't even on my radar because I'm not looking for them. If I see videos from people that I like that ends up offending me, then I just click it away. I don't give a shit. And then I go on with my day. And I think that's a sort of important... it's important to have that principle. Now, obviously, Alex Jones isn't seen as dangerous because people are offended by what he's saying. He's seen as dangerous because he has a following, and they might end up do shit that can be traced back to him. But at that point, you need to sort of examine, did he actually tell them to do these things, or did they do so of their own volition?
But I think that, no, he's not necessarily responsible for all the actions of his followers, but he does create the climate which creates the attitudes which can lead to violence. Now, that can be said of a lot of different things, like people who actually are on a quite moderate section of the political spectrum can often be some of the biggest advocates for interventions, or, as I like to call them, international terror. You see a lot of people, that's kind of the centrist position in the United States, is that America has to be, this great policeman of the world, and that it has the right and the duty to bomb other countries into being democracies. To me, this is, a pretty extreme and, violent position, but it's a position that's echoed quite often on the newsrooms in CNN, MSNBC, and so forth. However, with these media outlets, they can be factually corrected, they can be altered, and they can be challenged. With people like Alex Jones, his whole mentality is that the mentality that he indoctrinates in his followers is that the whole world is not to be believed, that the whole world is to be scorned and feared and resisted with violence if necessary. And there's another element with Alex Jones, and that's he kind of poisons the well for everyone else. Like, I may not want Alex Jones videos, but then I see them up in my recommendations anyway, no matter what. You know, and it will be all this, you know, insane stuff about how, you know, Muslims are the source of all the world's problems, you know, how white genocide is happening, you know, deep state this, deep state that, water poisoning this, water poisoning that, corrupt transgender agenda this, and it goes on and on and on. Now, when assessing platforms, I think it's important to let everyone have a voice. Let's say we have a pen and it's full of a ton of different sheep, and each of the sheep want to have a chance to eat some of the grass. But then if you open the doors of the pen and let in a wolf and he, you know, kills all the sheep, then they can't eat the grass. In fact, they have to flee back into their stalls, and they're just defenseless against this sort of person. And I think Alex Jones is a sort of wolf in the world of free speech, because he uses his attention grabbing titles to bring people in, and then creates a mentality of, you know, a bunker mentality, which keeps them from leaving. And I think Alex Jones is kind of like, he kind of represents a sort of cultist mentality. And I think he does a lot to cultivate it among his following. Now, not all of them are serious, but I have met people who genuinely believe that InfoWars is the best thing on earth, that it's the only source speaking truth to the world, and that all the things it's saying about chemtrails are true. That's a pretty scary mentality, because they don't believe that you can challenge what they're saying. They're like, oh, you have your opinion, I have mine. And it's kind of this weird mentality where, you know, the reality of the world doesn't matter. All that matters is the fears.
Yeah. The question is, though, how many of InfoWars watchers are like that? That's one question, and of course, my solution would still sort of be that you need to try to explain to them in a different way than that what they're believing is wrong. Like, not every person is sorry, I'm blanking on my English. Gonna have to translate this one.
Okay.
Not every person is responsive. No, that sounds weird to me. Well,
unresponsive.
Not every person is as is responding as well to like statistics and facts of that matter. Some people you need to approach in a different way.
Yeah.
And you know, the art is to sort of find out, okay, in what way can I speak to this person so that he might actually understand what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think Kyle Kalinske of Secular Talk is doing a great job with his debunking of Alex Jones. For a while there, he made at least a video a week about.
He almost focuses a bit too much on him. It's a bit weird. Like, he just occupies so much of Kyle Kalinski's minds. When in reality, Alex Jones, you know, sure, he has a large internet following, but he is kind of like he's a pretty wacky sort of character who you don't really need to refute. I mean, just watching his stuff is enough of a refutation for most people.
Yeah. Have you seen the? I think it was after the Texas shooting. He was talking to Paul Joseph Watson.
Oh yeah, where he was like, "Oh, it's Antifa, deep state, CIA, Muslim Islamists."
No cameras, please.
Top secret documents just come in, and then Paul Joseph Watson's like, "Well, it doesn't always have to be. You know, sometimes there isn't really anyone to blame." And Alex Jones was like, "No, deep state, Islamist, Muslim conspiracy," and then Paul Joseph
going to delete this message right now. It's great. Like, some of it is actually like quite funny, and and there are parts of me that are like that actually believe that he is doing performance art. because some of the segments from him that I have seen seem very performance artsy.
Yeah. Well, with Alex Jones, I think he exploits his fan base a lot. He uses their gullibility to sell supplements to them.
Oh yeah.
Paul
And that's
Joseph
the thing,
Watson, Alex Jones, they both are like big supplement hawks.
Who was the other one?
Paul Joseph Watson also is really big into supplements, and I think he's still an anchor on InfoWars.
Yeah, I think so. I thing about Paul Joseph Watson is that I think I actually like him even less than Alex Jones, because he has the same sort of, and pardon my French, retarded mindset as Alex Jones does, but he doesn't have any of the entertainment factor, in my opinion, at least. So I've basically just, like, I haven't blocked him on any platforms because I personally don't give a shit, but he never shows up in my feed, nothing like that. I haven't seen anything from him in quite a while, and I'm a happier guy for it.
Yeah, he is a pretty noxious character, Paul Joseph Watson. I think he's in some ways even more dangerous than Alex Jones.
He's way more presentable, and that's the sort of problem with.
Yeah, like Alex Jones, like a lot of his conspiracy theories are far too far out to attract much attention. Paul Joseph Watson, I think, is someone who could conceivably get into politics and someone who could shift the political landscape. Alex Jones is I think he's kind of an outlet for people who are afraid. You know, aside from a small group of cultists, he doesn't really have much of an audience. Like, sure, there's like a lot of people who are vulnerable to that sort of snake oil salesman, but not as many who are as vulnerable to the more polished reactionary that you find in Paul Joseph Watson.
Yeah. And, I remember the first time I saw Paul Joseph Watson. It was actually on one of my previous or earlier friends that had posted a video that he made about like how Islam is coming to, get you and whatever. And I don't know. I never liked the guy. I thought he seemed like an idiot from day one to me.
He also, his lips are so unattractive. It may seem weird to say, but they're like all the time. Why? Why do you speak with your lips like this?
It's so he can sound more British. You sounded a little bit British when you did that. No, I don't know. And imagine my shock. Have you? And I'm coming down with a lot of references here, but have you seen the Needle Drop did a video on Paul Joseph Watson?
Yes, I have seen that one.
I love that video. It's just do you wrong.
He is just such a. He thinks he's so clever. Like there's a certain arrogance about him that you just kind of wafts off the screen.
Yeah, he's very much like Ben Shapiro in that way. Actually, they both have this sort of arrogant take on the world, whereas they are the arbiters, the sole arbiters of truth.
Yeah, of fact and reason. That always did strike me as a bit weird. And another thing is he just like he does the stuff around soy, which is mostly unserious. Like if you get a bunch of right wingers to go off soy, okay, fine, get fat and avoid a healthy substance if you want. It's none of my concern. I mean, fat actually does lower testosterone. So, I mean, it's not like I was going to go with you anyway, but now you're even less of an attractive candidate. So congratulations. But if you want to make the right obese, like I have no problem if he keeps going on the route as like soy hater in chief. The more dangerous stuff is like his anti-immigrant focus. Like it's like, oh, I walk down Bristol and none of the Muslims look me in the eye. Oh my God.
Oh, that reminds me about Oh, what's the name of that asshole? Peter Sweden.
Oh, he's so stupid.
Yeah. He posted a tweet a little while ago about how, oh, I was walking through the most Muslim part of Norway now, and it's a hellhole, and people were like, it looks like a nice day.
Like he's literally just walking down the street and some kids are playing in the background. And meanwhile, like ooh, I'm so scared. Like, honestly, I don't understand how like non-white little kids can make you so afraid. And if they can, I think you really need to reevaluate your priorities in life and maybe your mindset and maybe everything.
Yeah.
But he's just a meme in general. Like, I remember the bit where he's like, I can't believe how many journalists have such low IQ. And then in his bio, it says journalist.
Yeah. Great. No, I actually, like, I'd seen some of the shit that he was doing, but I was like, okay, so this guy's an asshole, and I'm not going to pay any attention to him. And then I saw that one of my favorite YouTubers, Angry Foreigner, did a video about him, and it was amazing. Like, he did a great takedown of him. And then Peter Sweden, the idiot that he is, tried to respond. And Angry Foreigner made a new response video where he killed off the response. And then the Swedish alt-righter, the golden one, jumped in.
Oh no, to defend Peter Sweden?
Oh, he meant that they were acting like two young brothers that were just fighting each other, but they both had the heart in the right place.
Oh my god.
It was such a fucking ridiculous thing. But I don't know. I like stuff like that. I get entertained by those people. Angry Foreigner is a great guy. He has some views that I won't agree with, of course, but he seems like a very good guy.
Yeah, well, compared to Peter Sweden, you can make pretty much anyone look like an upstanding intellectual.
Yeah, doesn't take much, does it?
There's another tweet where he said, oh, my IQ is like 140, 150 maybe. And then another tweet, he's like, ow, I grabbed the hand with my stove. And someone's like, just pour water on your hand. But then he said, but now my hand hurts even more. And he has all this while tweeting instead of actually getting a solve or something. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, but then again, he is a complete idiot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what to say about people like Peter Sweden. It's just like the world is collectively getting dumber because he is a part of it, and he should be allowed. Like, my principle is, even with him, he should be allowed to spew his nonsense. But I think, for his part, most people have realized that he is an idiot, and they just don't pay him any attention unless they're idiots themselves. And with Alex Jones coming full circle with the thing, Alex Jones, I think it's a lot of the same things. Whereas people are not taking his content in a serious way, and those who do, they are generally seen as dum-dums.
Quite aptly.
Yeah. And I wouldn't disagree with that. That's absolutely something I could get behind.
Yeah, I suppose the danger is that Alex Jones fans aren't necessarily in the place where they can see themselves that way. Like they don't necessarily think, oh, this seems credible, and then they go to actual sources and they're like, oh, he's just selling snake oil all along. They're more along the lines of, wow, I'm enlightened. Everyone else is stupid for not believing that chemtrails are everywhere, and like the deep state CIA is going to overthrow America.
I have a guy on Facebook that does that all the fucking time. And right before I had my debate with Mad Dodge, I posted this thing on my Facebook where I basically asked people for advices that could help me in the debate. And he jumped in and he was like, "What are you going to debate? We are all controlled by the same guys anyway." And I'm like, "Hey, we're going to debate two different political systems." And he's like, "Oh, you need to get your blinders off, man." And I'm like, yeah, "Sure, whatever." So this guy, he actually believes in chemtrails. He's an anti-vaxxer.
Oh,
He believes that we are at war right now.
well, who? Norway or?
Yeah, and I would say that there is a case that could be made that we're part of the NATO coalition and whatever, but he believes that we're at a war in our country right now.
With who?
With the people in power. And we just don't know it yet. And I'm gonna, do my best to quote him right there and right now. "We need to open our eyes before the little green men come for us." I don't think he said little. Before the green men come for us.
Green?
Yeah. So.
As in aliens?
I think he means soldiers, but aliens is way more fun though.
I didn't know the Norwegian army was such a omnipresent threat.
It's not. And the guy is. So I know him, and he's a good guy when I meet him. He's just a perfectly lovable guy, whatever. But his views on the world are fucked up. The fun thing is that he's like. He went on a spamming spree on how bad vaccinations are, and basically what do you find in vaccination? Aluminum. And what do I think that's the one. And what do they find in the brains of people with Alzheimer's? You guessed it. And then he goes off and autism, that whole thing, all the things that have been debunked already. And then he makes a live stream of himself on Facebook where he says "Oh, the world has lost a great father today because I've decided to not have children." And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, probably for the best.
Well, we know what would have happened. The poor little child would have lasted till about 5, and then he would have come down with some sort of rare disease, or maybe even just chicken pox. And the dad would have been like, "Oh, how could they do this to me?"
Yeah, I'm actually thinking that a child would come home with a bubonic plague or something. But it would be the chemtrails, though.
Yeah, that infect the child, not your poor parenting decisions.
Yeah.
It does seem to be a certain, I do worry that one day, because of the anti-vaxxers, the whole world will be faced with an extremely deadly disease.
There's absolutely a chance of that. And, because I discussed it with him, or rather I told him to go fuck himself on Facebook, because he posted this picture or this article or something from a Norwegian newspaper where it said that now it might actually get punishable. So you might get a ticket or of some sort if you don't vaccinate your child. Whereas I think that's a good thing, that it should be punishable to not vaccinate your child.
Well, it's in a way, it's a kind of a child abuse, because you are putting your child at serious risk of coming down with a fatal illness.
Yeah, and it's not just the child. You're actually putting the rest of us in danger as well by, it's the whole group safety thingy that's a part of vaccination. So I'm like, it should be fucking punishable to not vaccinate your child. And he's like, "Oh, but that means that we're not free." And I'm like, "You're not free to set the society in danger, no. And you shouldn't be either." So it's the same thing with, Yeah, I'm generally a free individual, but I'm not free to blow a building up.
Well,
Like,
yeah, that's ridiculous.
yeah, I'm not free to put other people in mortal danger. So
Hmm.
why would it be any different if I don't vaccinate my child and I potentially put my child in danger and the people surrounding my child?
Yeah. It's just it is somewhat of a conundrum for me, because on one hand I'm like, yeah, you do have the right to individual autonomy, but on the other hand, like, it's such a big risk to everyone else that I like at this point I have to say, like, I'm starting to lean more to the security side of the argument.
Yeah. If it
Um,
weren't for anti-vaxxers, we would have killed off polio already.
yeah, but
But
it keeps coming back, and it keeps infecting new people and causing them to die in awful ways.
exactly. The thing is that thanks to vaccines, we have managed to kill off smallpox. I think
Hmm.
that's the only thing that we have actually managed to kill off, like wipe out completely. Now, we were almost there with polio, but it has started to make sort of a surge again.
Yeah,
Uh,
among anti-vaxxers.
yeah, and in countries like Venezuela, but Venezuela
Venezuela.
is, it's in a fucked situation,
Yeah.
and it's not because of socialism, in and of itself, anyway.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't like, oh, I hate those people who are like, their only argument against socialism is, but Venezuela. Well, but
Venezuela,
Venezuela what? You think I'm going to exactly follow the model that Hugo Chavez did? No. I mean, I'm not necessarily a state socialist in the first place. But secondly, like, I mean, Venezuela is enduring a huge collapse in their primary commodity, which is oil. It's like 80% of their exports. And they're enduring a very corrupt government. And they're enduring tons and tons of sanctions from the United States. Now, this isn't really a recipe for a strong economy.
no, and I think Venezuela isn't because it's like clockwork at this point. It's like, yeah, right wingers are going to mention Venezuela if people in the United States want free healthcare.
Yeah, they're
It's
like, but Venezuela.
if the lefty that proposes uh, Medicare for all isn't prepared for that, then they're going to look stupid. I've seen that, like, a lot of the new sort of progressive candidates and stuff, they seem like they aren't schooled well enough in debating.
Mm.
So they're
Well, yeah.
they're for the right policies, but they don't really understand the fundament of why they should be for these things.
Mm.
So, and that makes it so that once someone like Sean Hannity, for example, starts pushing them, then they fall off very quickly, which
Yeah.
is a bad thing because it hurts the cause of the left. And it's like, which is why I love when, for example, Kyle Kalinske goes on Fox News and basically demolishes the right when he's there, because he actually has done his homework. He talks about these things all the time, and he
Hmm.
knows all the attacks that he's going to get. So I think that's sort of the model that these candidates need to sort of get into. They need to get schooled a little bit more in how to um, how to defend themselves against these attacks and how to make a new attack on the other way.
Hmm.
So basically, when they say Venezuela, they should say Norway, Sweden, Denmark. It's very simple.
Yeah, the whole but Venezuela is just, oh, it's the worst kind of argument ever. I mean, like, there's so many places in the world where capitalism has caused misery, where capitalism has caused starvation and devastation. Like, I can't remember if it was Zambia, but there was a country in Africa which, was enduring tons and tons of famine because the IMF had basically said, sorry, we're not going to let you fund um, fertilizer for your farms. That would be an intrusion of government forces. So instead, these people have to basically, the soil gets less and less fertile because these poor farmers don't have the money to buy big fertilizers. And it was just a disaster until the government finally stepped in with a program to publicly provide the fertilizers. That was part, that was just another one of the demonstrations of why neoliberalism is a belief system that doesn't work and that only benefits a tiny class in society. But anyway, like, the whole, I don't know.
But I also think it's wonderful especially when libertarians do the whole, not necessarily Venezuela, but like, show me one country where socialism has actually worked out. There are no places in history where communism or socialism actually worked. And I'm like, well, that's true, but show me one place where Ayn Rand's ideology has worked. There's never been a sort of ANCAP paradise, and there never will be, because like communism, it strides against a deep part of our nature to be completely that way. And this is the thing that, because I think ANCAPs they love to talk about human nature, because they talk about human nature being like, oh, we're meant to be competitive. And that's true. They're not wrong in that, but we're also meant to be compassionate. We also are that. So we're not only competitive or only compassionate. We are both. And this is why neither communism or anarcho-capitalism would work, in my opinion. Because there is a part of human nature that actually would deny those two systems. And which is why I would say that, okay, so let's work from the middle and then see what part we should swing the pendulum according to what would be needed.
Okay, so my take with that is that human nature throughout history has been decided by the economic system which is governing it, or at least has been portrayed in literature and in philosophical arguments by the dominant economic system. For example, during the times of ancient Greece, when slavery was widespread, Aristotle theorized that that some people were servile by nature, and so slavery, that some people should be slaves, was inherently a part of human nature. In the Middle Ages, during the times of feudalism, it was theorized that human nature was akin to a great chain of being decreed by God, where each person would be in their place, the king, his lords, their knights, and then the peasants, and everyone would have to remain in that place because that was their nature, that was their divine God-given purpose in life. And then in capitalism, now it's that human nature is selfish and greedy, and that we should, and that a system which recognizes this aspect of human nature, this greed, this selfishness, this desire to, control. That's the only system that can work, and everything else is just against human nature and wrong by default. Now, I think that to an extent, it's true that people aren't perfect. I don't think that humans are an angelic species or anything. I think that there probably always will be greedy individuals, and individuals who don't want to do very much with their life, who just want to do drugs and sleep the night away. And at the other end, there are going to be people who are extremely devoted to helping others, extremely devoted for providing for them, and extremely devoted to betterment of the human condition. And now, that doesn't mean that a cooperative system wouldn't work, because a cooperative system recognizes that everyone has their place, everyone has a role. And sure, some people are going to have much less of a role, but that doesn't mean there won't be something for them to do. That doesn't mean there won't be a place for them. I don't know, like, it just, since seeing how quickly mentalities can change in the world, I think, according to how systems have changed, is, I think, really remarkable. Like, say the Irish, for example, in America, the Irish used to be extremely demonized. You know, they were considered to be kind of like white black people up until about, say, like 1950s or so. But then for this prejudice that was so deep seated seems to mainly vanish, and Irish people today don't really face any of the systemic barriers that, you know, people of color in America still face. Like, it's just, it's baffling how quickly, once that prejudice had served its purpose, it was discarded in favor of, you know, okay, now we're all white people. You know, now it's not just British, German, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, whatnot. No, now we're all white. Now we're all one. And as soon as it benefited the powers that be for it to be that way.
Yeah, that is an interesting take on it, at least. Now, when it comes to the way that the Irish were treated, I'm going to be so honest that I'll just say up front that I don't actually have too much knowledge about why and how and how long and whatever, because I've only I've been ignorant to the fact that they were actually treated as shit for quite some time. Like, it's fairly recent that I actually heard about it in the first place, which, you know, it only tells how bad of a student I must have been, because I'm sure it was brought up. But yeah, I don't know. I think I only got to know about the situation with the Irish only, like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And after that, I haven't really looked into it, because it hasn't really been relevant in any of the conversations I've been to.
Yeah.
Been in. But I do think it's interesting, though, that they were treated, like you said, basically like white black people, or black white people. Oh, like mulattoes. Now, hi to every one of the Effeminate Degenerates fans. I am the local Nazi, I guess. No, I don't know. I've never really been too big of a fan of the whole human nature argument, even though I use aspects of it myself in the way to say that, yeah, but we aren't naturally only competitive or only cooperative. We are actually both. But other than that, when people are like, oh, yeah, you know, it's a natural for us to share everything. And yeah, it's also a natural for us to fly, but we do it every day. So it's the thing that once civilization got a real hold and we actually managed to build these communities, then what human nature is sort of took a back seat. And it's still there. It will always be with us, but it isn't. It's not as prominent as it was before, when we were hunter-gatherers, for example. So, you know, in an urban setting, for example, then human nature in the whole, we're only selfish, we are only here to look after ourselves and our life, it wouldn't work in an urban setting. We have ambulance for a reason. So I think that the whole human nature argument, it's very easily discarded, in my opinion, because it's very easy for me to counter with just saying that, yeah, we do many things that are not natural for humans to do every day. So why should I pay that any more of my attention than I need to? Now, I personally, I do think that it's not good for humans to be in a urban setting, and you know, that's that's an interesting part of me. But I do think that a lot of the problems come from the fact that we live too close to each other, and a lot of the sort of social or what would be the word, psychosocial,
social anxiety.
Yeah, stuff like that. I think a lot of it is due, like you can see a higher concentration of it in the cities now. Obviously, I'm not given this any academic research, so this is just a theory or a hypothesis that I have in my head. But I do think that a lot of these things, they won't disappear completely, but they will be less relevant or less prominent once you get out in a more rural setting where people don't live 100 people on top of each other all the time. Of course, being in a rural setting comes with a whole other set of problems. Usually, that people that live in the rural settings are rather xenophobic and like the thing. They're usually quite conservative, and they don't like things that don't go with how they've been living their lives all their lives. So there are some, positives and negatives about both sides.
Yeah.
Oh, we've gotten a really lot far away from Alex Jones at this point.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Personally, I have a preference for an urban environment. I love the diversity of cultures. I love the diversity of, things that I can do in a city. And I love the diversity of things I can see. In the country, you have to drive so far to get anywhere. In the city, I can, use public transport. And I'm at Parliament Hill, or I'm at the art gallery, or I'm at the museum, or whatever.
This is why you need to take a trip to Norway, and I'll show you around Bergen. It's a very nice city, but it doesn't feel very urban. So
yeah,
it's a great thing. And I myself live in a more rural part of Bergen, or a more suburban, I guess.
Yeah. I live in a what used to be the suburb of Ottawa, but now the suburbs have moved further out. So it's it used to be a suburb, but now it has kind of become, there's more activity.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird place to live, sort of an in-between place.
Huh. So, talking about people that are, worthy of discussion and somewhat. I saw that you were in a beef with V on Twitter.
Yes. I think the poor thing misunderstood my point. He got a bit angry at a post I did on toxic masculinity, which, I mean, scoff in your skeptic laugh if you want. But I mean, my post wasn't really very anti-male. I think I explicitly said most men are wonderful. The problem is this kind of masculinity, this approach to looking at life and to looking at other people and to looking at yourself is not healthy. And I gave various examples of effects and results and possible solutions.
And what did he react with?
I can actually pull it up right now if you want.
Yeah.
But it may take me some time. So,
was it only one back and was it a longer back and forth, or was it only him responding once to what you said?
I think it was only him responding once.
Still, it's more response than I've ever gotten from the guy.
Yeah, I was honestly a bit baffled that he considered my little post to be worthy of commenting on. I mean, it's not every day I attract the attention of accounts with 20,000 plus subscribers, although I am mutuals with Peter Coffin on Twitter, which I do appreciate.
So do you, talking about toxic masculinity, so you subscribe to the idea that there is such a thing as toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Do you believe in toxic femininity?
Oh, sure. I mean, there are
Well,
definitely women who weaponize femininity to advance their gains. Like a token of that kind would, I suppose, be that woman in 1919 um, who who fled from this black guy who they were both in an elevator, and then she fled out crying, so that he had raped her, and then later recounted her accusations, and that caused a huge race riot, which destroyed the community. I can't remember. I think it was Omaha or something like that where this took place. And there's definitely people who exploit vulnerability to attract, protectors. And there are also other women who try to tear other women down. I've noticed that there's a lot of women who are really big on slut shaming, who, see a woman dressed, with very little on or something. And they're immediately, they have all these assumptions about them, immediately gossiping with all their friends. And, that's not healthy. That's not helpful either. And so definitely I'd say that that's an unhelpful habit of femininity as well, a kind of a toxic femininity. I think toxic femininity is probably less important because, well, I mean, in Canada, less so in Norway. I think Norway has moved in a much better direction. But in Canada, there are still a lot of boundaries for women. And so, men occupy most of the positions of power. So toxic masculinity is more of a problem, if as it will, is more of a threat. But I think definitely it's important to be able to discuss the other one as well.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. I think, like, as the skeptic, I'm. I don't think I would say that there's no such thing as toxic masculinity or toxic femininity, for that matter. I think a lot of I'm trying to form the sentence in my head without sounding general or too generalizing, but I think a lot of people that more skeptic people are looking at as SJWs and stuff like that. I think they have a different threshold than I would have for what toxic masculinity is, for example. I think like, okay, so there is a part of toxic masculinity that I would say that people are like, when men get to the whole men should only be men kind of thing, when they get basically transphobic, stuff like that, the whole I think the worst thing is the whole, the gays can be gay as long as they don't hit on me. That part, I would say that's, first of all, if a gay person starts hitting on me, I would take it as a compliment, as if anyone starts hitting on me. It seems like it's a sign that someone has an interest in you. Just take it. Like, just because a gay man is hitting on you doesn't mean that you have to be gay to say thank you for the compliment. It's yeah. So that whole mindset that I accept them gays, but as long as them gays keep away from me, all that shit. It's like, I would say that that's toxic because it actually makes it sort of sets a precedent that it's not actually okay to be gay. I'm going to pay lip service, but it's not actually fine.
Yeah.
So I would say that could go into something that I would say is toxic masculinity. Now, I don't believe that just being a guy is, at that point I would be like, I would be called a cock for sure, and by everyone in the Red Eye Stream. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I haven't ever met anyone who believes that all men. No, wait, there was one commentator that's like, there's no difference. All masculinity is bad. And I'm like, I don't necessarily think that's true at all. Yeah, interestingly enough, my tweet got criticism from radical feminists. It got criticism from centrists. It got criticism from incels. It got criticism from the right. So it kind of it got very popular, but it also attracted a lot of feedback from a lot of strange
I wish
places.
I could compose a tweet that would get that much criticism. Listen, okay. I'm just, everyone that's watching now just knows that I just want to be famous, basically.
Yeah, well, I hope everyone, I'll put his channel in the description. So after the stream is done, go ahead and subscribe. I do encourage it. Anyway, just a second. Here we go. Here's my thread on toxic masculinity. And then V says, you must be such a moral busybody to write a disgruntled wall of text on Twitter that is designed to tell other individuals how they should leave their lives. This is why SJWs are ridiculed and mocked in polite society. Smiley face.
So.
And my response was, oh my God, is this the V? Also, I don't recall telling anyone to kill themselves. You must have misread the thread. This wall of text was just supposed to be educational. Men are mostly lovely. Love my BF. It's just about tackling toxic masculinity, which hurts men and women. And he didn't really respond to that.
So, do you have any idea how he stumbled upon your wall of text?
I think it was retweeted by Christy Winters. And he may follow her like a hate follow. Or maybe one of his friends was like, ugh, look at this, SJW on Twitter.
Christy Winter, oh my God, I know that name.
Yeah, she got involved with a big drama with Bering.
Yeah, that's where I know her from. And of course, as the big skeptic I am, I love Bering, so.
Yeah, well, you're entitled to that opinion, even though I disagree. Where are we here? I'm going full centrist now. But I do think that the reaction was a bit strange. Most people just seem to be getting emotional about the thread without really interacting with it. I mean, there were some people who were making genuinely good criticisms, like the Common Sense guy who has, I think, like around 400 followers, subscribers on Twitter. He made he was making points, but there was others who just went on to rants about how I was femme-splaining and man-shaming.
Yeah, well,
do you need to see the receipts? I can provide. So here we go. Yes, from Hector Fabio Meza. Or maybe you should stop femme-splaining masculinity to men. We're tired of your buzzwords, tired of your attempts to explain your victim blaming and man shaming and your shitty ideology. Just stop spouting your bullshit. No testicles, no opinion. And my response was femme-splaining, man shaming, no buzzwords. Pick one.
So, God damn it, some people are just so. Full disclosure to anyone watching that might be on either side of this, I didn't read the entire wall of text, so there might be a bunch of things that I would disagree with in there. I'm going to read it. I'll do that much.
I'm going to watch that little video you sent me in the
the Alex Jones one.
Of course.
Yeah. So obviously we've talked a couple times before, and I think you are one of the more reasonable people that I talk to. I honestly think that what you do, like even though your YouTube channel is not as big as Sargon's, let's be honest. I think the work you do is quite important, and it's important that the left has reasonable people there as well. I remember when I, first stumbled upon you because it was when you had the debate with 40. And
Yeah.
40's my guy. I love the dude. He's a very intelligent guy, and I was basically like, oh, he's going to debate a feminist. This is going to be super fun. And then I watched the debate, and I was like, well, I sort of didn't I didn't go into this thinking that I was going to become a fan of this person. So I like your work. What can I say?
Thank you. Yeah, I was happy to have that discussion with him, although I was a bit more baffled by the discussion that came afterwards with Madge Dog and the whole stream. Like some of the people, like you and 40 ounce, were pretty reasonable, but then some of the others were a bit more baffling, like Madge Dog saying that England is a socialist, fascist country.
Oh yeah, you should have seen the stream they had yesterday. It was fucking awesome. Like I don't know if you know all the people. Like you haven't been on any other of the streams there, so.
I haven't gotten any invites, so I haven't. No, I don't know when they are.
Yeah, so basically, MC, he's the sort of token conservative, in my opinion, and then you have Cabbage, which is the Brit. They were going at it yesterday, and they were screaming at each other. And I was basically just saying, I wasn't in the stream, I was just watching it. And I had to comment like, wow, someone needs to take their diazepam at this point.
Why were they so angry with each other?
Someone mentioned Edward Snowden, and MC has a big stick up his ass about Edward Snowden.
Like, I think Edward Snowden should get a pardon. He's a hero.
Right. But MC, if you're watching this, you know that I'm very disagreeing with you. So he doesn't think that Edward Snowden is a hero. He thinks he's basically a traitor or whatever.
I've met a few Americans with the same opinion.
Yeah. So someone, I can't remember who, someone mentioned Edward Snowden, and that ended up with a big fucking, I don't know. They got really angry at each other, and they refused to let the other person speak, and it was a huge clusterfuck, and it was very entertaining. After like, I don't know, 10 to 20 minutes just screaming at each other.
Yeah. And I remember some other hits from Madge Dog on his channel when he said that all the homeless people had plasma screen TVs.
Yeah. Okay, so for the record, I love the dude. I think he's an amazing guy. I love the fact that he has me on his network, even though I'm, more or like on his streams, even though I'm way to the left of him.
Yeah.
But he values my opinions, even though he doesn't always agree with them. But he can say some ridiculous stuff from time to time. Then again, so do I guess.
Well, everyone says things that can be taken as ridiculous. Yeah. But
so,
all we can do is, appreciate the greatest hits and laugh at them and learn to be better people. Oh, yeah. And then there was the whole pick yourself up by your bootstraps, which he unironically said at one point. Before I had ironically said it when he said, I was homeless once, and I rose up. Now I have like 5 children and I'm still struggling and poor. And I'm like, so what you're saying is you picked yourself up by your bootstraps. And he got kind of sour about it. And then he actually unironically said, picked yourself up by your bootstraps later.
Yeah, and the best part about that was that basically everyone started laughing, and he didn't understand why we were laughing. Basically because she made that point into she was satirizing you earlier, and now you basically made the same point.
Yeah, you literally fell right into the stereotype.
So yeah, but yeah, and it's. I do think that the debate I had with him when we finally managed to actually have the debate was a very constructive one. I'm working on. Well, that's actually a lie. I am going to make a video where I basically analyze the discussion I had with him.
Okay.
Where I I'm going to look at it again, and then I'm basically going to see what points could I have made better, what points did he make that were actually good, that where he got me and stuff like that. I already know that I have to defend them on the Republic thing, because I agree with the Republic over a monarchy, even though the Norwegian monarchy is fine. So I don't think he's he's not as worse as bad as they get. He's rather moderate would be a completely wrong word to use, because it's not moderate in any sense almost. But he is. It's easy to talk to him once you get him on sort of a one-on-one sort of way to discuss. The problem with the Red Eye stream, and my roommate has said this a bunch of times, is that it's a mix between just cracking a cold one with the boys and talking serious political shit. And it ends up being a blunder that doesn't mix very well. So I think the Red Eye works better when they decide before the program that, okay, today it's going to be a sort of clean cut thing. But when they go over in the sort of, we'll just talk shit and then we'll talk some politics, it always ends up being a shouting match between two people. Usually Mad Dogs and MC. So but like I said, I like it. I like the fact that I have a platform where I can express myself in front of more people than the ones that just watch my videos. I think most of my audience comes from the Red Eye community anyway.
Well, hopefully your audience will increase. And unfortunately, we're going to have to cut it there because I have to go to a movie soon.
What movie?
It's called, I think it's called, it's either, Juliet Naked.
That's sexist.
Yeah, it's a bit strange sounding, but hopefully it will be decent. Anyway, I will leave Rat Resistance's channel in the description. I encourage all of you to check it out. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. You're lovely as always. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit the red button and subscribe. Leave a like if you feel like it. Leave a comment if you have some more thoughts that you want to say. And as always, ta-ta for now.